Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, prenez place. Il est l'heure de commencer. Voilà, merci. Je vois des visages tout souriants. Ça voudrait dire qu'on a bien passé la nuit et que nous sommes prêts à commencer. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. The doors are still opening. The doors are still open. We're welcoming our delegates, excellencies, ministers, ambassadors, commissioners from various institutions, representatives of various countries, member countries of the coalition, and partners. You are welcome. It's good to have you here again. Welcome, everyone. May I please ask you to take a seat because we will be starting right away. We will be starting right away. Now, it's so good. It's my pleasure to welcome you here again today. Now, if you were not here early enough yesterday and you're unsure who I am, my name is George Fomeyen, and I am moderator, facilitator, headmaster, discipline master, timekeeper, all of the above in one. And I'm here to make sure that this continues to be a great moment for us as a coalition and a great moment for the world's future generation. I just want to bring us back to the essence of our presence here. Yesterday was filled with energizing commitments and lots of discussions about how we will do things for school meals, for the children, why it is bigger than just school meals. But one thing that I feel we should start this day off with is to remind ourselves of who we are concerned about. Let's listen to the children before we get into the details of our deliberations today. Just watch this and listen.
Si m'étais président, si m'étais premier ministre, m'étais toute qualité manger.
Es importante porque la podemos compartir, los ayuda a ser más inteligentes.
Le daría las gracias por darnos meriendas para que los niños prueben cosas que nunca han probado por primera vez, porque la merienda ha llegado a nuestro centro educativo y nos ha enseñado que no importa lo que comamos, que todo es lo mismo.
Arroz com feijão. Mas eu queria que aqui na escola comêssemos, por exemplo, peixe, carne.
Serve-se para muitas pessoas. Ajuda-nos quando saímos ao intervalo, comemos e sentimos o amor da pessoa que trouxe a fuga para cá.
បើសិនជាខ្ញុំខ្លាចជានាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីខ្ញុំនឹងឧបត្ថម្ភអាហារពីរពេលសម្រាប់សិស្សពីព្រោះអាហារថ្ងៃត្រង់ធ្វើឲ្យសិស្សពុំសូវឃ្លានពេលកំពុងរៀនសូត្រខ្ញុំនឹងឧបត្ថម្ភអាហារពីរពេលជូនសាលានឹងពេលព្រឹកម្ដងនិងពេលថ្ងៃម្ដងនឹងមានគ្រឿងទេស
Ma nourriture à l'école, c'est sur le pain avec le œuf.
When they brought this hydroponics for us, when they started cooking for us, there people started coming every day to school to learn every day because they know that in my mind, when they finish learning, they know that there is food at the kitchen, they go and get food to eat.
If this program was not here, would you get hungry? Would it come late to school? Would it not even come to school?
فنی دوست داشتن من متمتیکا میباشد در آینده من میخواهم که کارگر بانک
شوم و مردم یاری رسونم. من میخواهم که معلمه فن زبان مادری شوم. من میخواهم در آینده طبیب باشم که همه بیمارها را شفا دهم. من میخواهم که بانکی شوم و به آدمان پول دهم. ما در مکتب آش، شیله، خامشوربا، پیلیمن، مصطوبه میخوریم. اگر ما گرسنه باشیم به درس ها جواب دادن نمیتوانیم. سرمون درد میکند و ما درس را خوشو نمیفهمیم. ما در درس ها گرسنه هستیم و فکری خواندن را میکنیم. اگر با پریزیدنت خودم بخورم خواهش میکنم که با ما سمبوسه، گوش بیریان، منتو، هر گونه خوراک های با لذت را تشکیل کنم. اگر خودم پریزیدنت شوم سمبوسه، منتو، آش پلو، گوش بیریان در یک روز 2 مرتبه خوراک میدهم.
A round of applause. We've seen future presidents, future teachers, future doctors, bankers. There was even one who wanted to be a native language teacher. And it's their future that comes with it. And there were certain things which they said. One said, when we eat, we can feel the love of those who brought the food to us. Isn't that magical? Just think about what it means. What you're doing here today, it's contributing to that feeling that this young woman is going to have, feeling the love of those who brought the food to us. When one of them said, now there are lots of children coming to school because they know that when they finish learning, there is food in the kitchen for them to eat. But what we are seeing is not just about the food that they are eating, it's the ambition, it's the human capital that we're developing. And the fact that there are nutritious foods in there, we're developing the whole person. That's what this School Meals Coalition is all about. Think about them every minute you're making a commitment, because that's why we're here. Now, we want to look, and that just takes me back to yesterday and all the things that I heard in here yesterday. And just permit me go back with a few, just go on a few highlights before we kickstart the day in earnest. You know, there were impressive stories and bold commitments that came. But first, I would like to once again thank the President of Honduras for the inspiring opening remarks that she had. I felt the energy and the commitment, and it's that energy that guided me through the day, just because you could have and you could hear the promises coming from the very top. There were parts of the speech that was presented to us which had to come through President Macron, which talked about the fact that school meals were more than just the meal that you receive. It's about justice and equality. It's about things to do with women's empowerment. It's about building communities. That is something I took from yesterday, and I hope you did as well. Yesterday, we also celebrated the announcement of Brazil. Brazil came in as a co-chair of this coalition, and that was wonderful as well to hear. And we also welcomed 8 member countries and partners here. About 20 countries reported on progress since joining the coalition, and 6 countries made new bold commitments. I keep using the word bold because it is important. We are making very strong, determined commitments for the future. 5 regional groupings, that was so interesting to see that. They shared the regions, what the regions agreed on actions to improve the quality and the scale of school meals programs, because it's not just enough doing it in little bits. You've got to do it big. You've got to scale it up. However, we heard that a big challenge is all about the funding. Countries cannot do it themselves all alone. And partners are responding to this need and putting the children and school meals at the heart of their operations, coming up with new and innovative financing mechanisms. For those of you who were here, plenary session 3, oh my, oh my. You could feel it, you could feel the energy, but you could feel the energy because we saw the challenges, and then we saw that when you have people with the vision and when you have that plan, then you can go to those institutions that can fund. That is the beauty of coming together as a coalition. With all these commitments having come on the first day of the summit, I am particularly excited to open this second day of discussions. You can see it, you can feel it. You can feel it in my voice. I am really excited and I'm really looking forward to the discussions today. We will learn about school meals and the ability to act as a policy lever to drive climate action, and governments will have the opportunity to dive deep into the work of the coalition's initiatives and to learn about the support that is currently available to governments, the opportunities of engagement, and the initiatives, roles, and visions, the way forward. So please, don't move. Now I've got some good news and some bad news before we kickstart. What do you want first? All right, I will start. It's not so bad, it's just simple good news. The good news is that we will make sure that we wrap up before it gets dark. It's the good news. And to ensure that that good news works, we hope that you had and you enjoyed your coffee this morning, because we won't have a coffee break. We would have the sessions, the plenaries this morning, and we'll go right through to lunch. Then we'll come back. The idea is to give us all some shopping time. This is Paris. Okay? So I'm wishing all of you a very fruitful and inspiring second day. And let me therefore at this time invite the moderators of this first session of this second day. And it's about the potential to drive climate action and food systems transformation. So allow me invite our moderator. And he's a very important person, because what we do and what I try to do is I do the soft part, and then you bring in the leaders with the brains to do the hard part, which is moderating. And there is none other better to lead this than Valerie Guarnieri and Professor Don Bundy. Valerie Guarnieri is the Assistant Executive Director of the World Food Programme, and she is joining me on stage, as well as Professor Donald Bundy. Please, a round of applause. And it's over to them, first session.
Bonjour à tous. J'espère que vous avez bien reposé parce qu'on va bien travailler ce matin. I am looking forward to being with you here today. And we had those great announcements and commitments. We were just able to hear a recap of some of those from yesterday from George. Thank you, George. Where did George go? There you are. Thank you, George. And now we're going to keep the momentum going. You know, a topic that's been on a lot of your minds has been this issue of how we can use school meals as a platform for food systems transformation and for climate action. So today we're going to drill down into that issue and really understand some of the latest research and thinking on that subject, but also what some countries and governments and what partners are already doing in this space. Our idea really is to spotlight solutions that are scalable, solutions that are sustainable, and solutions that enable us to use school meals as the policy lever that they can be to transform how we produce, how we procure, and how we consume food. And it's a very powerful policy lever. It's not a silver bullet, but it's a strategic, school meals are a strategic entry point that can help drive systemic change. And we're going to hear about how that systemic change is being driven around the world. Change for people and also change for our planet. One key area where this comes to bear is in the space of public procurement. And this is an area that has garnered so much interest from member states, how to really leverage the power of procurement in order to introduce changes and introduce policy measures into their food systems. It can be used to drive support for smallholder farmers, to provide more nutritious foods, to direct procurement to indigenous communities, to support women. There are many ways in which public procurement can be used to drive change. But we also know that public procurement can be used to drive sustainable farming practices, even biodiversity. And so we're going to have a chance to hear about some of these examples here today. And in order to kick that off, I'm going to have a little chat with my friend here, Don Bundy. So Professor Don Bundy is the director of the Research Consortium for the School Meals Coalition. And he is going to really talk to us about some work that he's been doing around the issue of how we rethink the consequences for climate, environment, biodiversity, and food sovereignty. The Research Consortium was the first initiative to kick off under the School Meals Coalition. And Don, for the past year, the Research Consortium has been working on this paper. You've been working on this for over a year. Can you tell us, what is this paper? How was it initiated? And what's it about, Don?
I ask myself the same questions. This is very good. So it's great to be here. This is actually on the web now. In fact, it's also, there's a 5-page executive summary in your packages. The report itself, I'm afraid it's rather large, but the report itself is 50 pages. The rest of this is annexes and technical stuff, which is only to illustrate how complicated this issue is. I hope this looks really unfinished. It looks much better on the web, of course. I hope it looks really unfinished because it's unfinished business. This is us now bringing it to this meeting for discussion. But let me talk about the background, because you're all well aware that the whole ideas about homegrown school feeding, those have been around for 15 years or more, great ideas, but centered really around the idea of the menu and also the value of the agricultural setting. And that was kind of that. And then we heard over time that there was a specific interest in the environmental impact, in issues of food sovereignty, of agroecology, of climate change. All of those also come into that same picture. And so we felt, and there was some discussion about this at the Helsinki meeting a year ago, we felt that it would be worth revisiting this and coming up with a sort of thought piece, a white paper, for this meeting in Paris. So that's what this is.
Well, thank you for telling us about that. And indeed, I think the black and white photo helps make it look a little rough. But rough it may be, or a rough draft it may be, but a lot of thinking and a lot of work has already gone into it. Can you tell us a little bit more about who collaborated to make this paper a reality? And maybe even what were some of the initial findings?
Okay, so the way that the Research Consortium works is we are trying to create a global partnership, a global network around school meals that's truly global, that really focuses on all of the issues that I love Brazil's explanation yesterday about, that it really engages with people. And one of the ways we do this is by creating a community of practice that's global, and we created one called Diet and Food Systems to lead on this topic. The dialogue grew. There are 85 institutions that have contributed to this. 160 academics and scholars have contributed to this. It's been put together. I'm just going to call a couple of names out, well, just one for now, which is Silvia Pastorino, who's the pen holder for the process, and Sylvia's sitting at the back there if you want to follow up on that. But we also thought it was very important to do some modeling. So we took the example of the Lancet's Commission on food, and we, for the first time, focused it on school-age children and adolescents. And I want to thank Marco Springman, who did the modeling for the Lancet Commission. He's done the modeling for us too, and we can share those models with any country that's interested in looking at that. And then we took all that community of practice to discussions in various places. I'm just going to call out a couple of them. So one of them was the Hidden Hunger global event in Hohenheim, Germany, which is a global event every 2 or 3 years, which this year was entirely on school meals. And they produced a declaration from the nutritionists about the importance of school meals in these contexts. These are the sorts of things that have really helped feed into their process. Then, of course, there was the fabulous meeting in Latin America and the Caribbean of their network that we were part of, and the conference recently with ECOWAS. And then just last week, we had what we call a showcase. We shared the information with academics worldwide. We had more than 600 discussing this work. So that's been the process. But I don't want you to think that we finished the work, but I do want you to think that there's one very key point that came out of all of this, and that was that the school health community, that governments and the school meals programs had a unique and special role to play in changing food systems globally.
Well, why don't we tease that out a little bit more, Don? What were some of the main conclusions on the role of government in using school meals to transform their food systems?
Right. So the reason that the school meal systems are so important, we've heard a little bit about this already yesterday, is that of all public food, school systems are about 70%. So about 70% of all the food that's controlled directly by government, that's to say not private, in private hands. So government holds the policy levers to all of that. That's part of the picture. The other part of the picture is, we talk about this, it's a $48 billion industry, the school meals programs, but the majority of the costs of that are actually domestic. It's domestic funding. So again, it's the governments that hold the control of those processes. That's why it's so important. That's why governments can make these big changes. And so we identify 2 key ways in which change can be brought about. The first is that governments can help children become the agents of change. This is that again, this point, governments hold the policy levers. By decisions made now, governments can almost instantly change the kind of food that children eat, change children's understanding of the food, their relationship with food. And because it's in schools, because education is right there, because it's part of education, that change can go into the next generation and into the families. So there's one huge piece. The second piece is that the policy change, it can have more long-term effects because it creates a demand for a different sort of agriculture. So this is as I say, more long-term, but equally important. And it's about the ability of governments then to procure food. This is the power of procurement point that you made, to procure foods which are themselves more resilient, more appropriate to indigenous demand, which more appropriate to food sovereignty. All of those things can be changed by what it is that governments ask for, in their food system. It can be, if you like, sort of a leader in changing practice in the agricultural sector. And that sounds very grand, but I want to say that that's not just aspirational, and we can see some real examples of that already. And we would spotlight Brazil in particular, India, but also Germany as countries that are really moving along that road already.
So, I mean, that sounds really exciting, and there's clearly a lot of things that governments can do to drive this change. There's more than 50 governments who have been here, Dom. Do you have any specific recommendations that come from your analysis on how they may go about doing that?
Okay. This is where I have to preface my remarks by saying this cake is not yet baked. This is about discussion. And of course, when we talk about food and when we talk about food industry, these are really important global issues. So all we can do is start to point to what are the issues that need to be thought through. So I'd rather not think that these are recommendations, but rather that what we've tried to do is identify what are the priorities to think about in solving these issues. So there are 4 that I want to highlight in terms of the agent of change part of this picture. What policy changes can governments make that have significant effects? The first is around menus. So menu changes in schools can change the dietary expectations of the children. They change the children's relationship with food. We heard a lot about that yesterday, which I thought was very interesting. And you can make big changes in that. If you look just at the climate part, you can reduce environmental impacts by more than 50% for example, by a switch to vegetarian diet. But you can't just simply do something like that, because it's also then changing the way in which society interacts. We have lots of examples of school meals programs not being eaten by children. So you really need to think about the ways in which these things can happen. So for example, the models show that more subtle changes, something people call flexitarian, so there's less meat, more fish, more plant-based products, that can achieve up to a 40% reduction in impact. In other words, you can achieve really big impacts but minimizing the societal consequences. These are all things that need to be discussed, but that was a very important point to us, that menu policy changes are crucial, but they need to be done in the right way. And one of the ways you can approach that, there are already school meal planning tools out there that can help governments to plan in that way. The second big policy area is energy. And a change to clean and efficient energy in terms of cooking methods is particularly important. And particularly for much of Africa, most school food is still cooked on open fires. So a switch from open fires to more efficient stoves would have very significant advantages in terms of fuel efficiency. You need less fuel, it costs less. It reduces the environmental degradation of deforestation, and also, and very importantly, has environmental health benefits for the caterers in terms of the clean air. So that's another very important area, and there are analogies to that for other countries. The third policy area is waste. It's extraordinary to me that today, 1/3 of the world's food is wasted. That is absolutely extraordinary. And so reducing that wastage, the level of impact there is around 12%. We get used to it. We're talking about 12%, 40%, 50%. These are huge numbers. So you can make a really big difference by getting these things right. And also around waste, we would highlight single-use plastics as part of that issue. And then the final issue is on the agent of change is the issue of education, the role of education here. This is happening at school. It's happening at a crucial phase in young people's lives as they're growing up. So you can totally change the way that young people think about the food that they're eating, and you can change their lifelong food preferences, their dietary preferences, which has really big impacts on non-communicable disease in middle age. I mean, frankly, it's one of the most effective ways of addressing obesity, which is one of the biggest epidemics that the world deals with. You can see why I'm getting to the point that this is a unique opportunity that we have that other systems don't have. So those are the 4 policy areas in the agent of change issue. But the other piece is, of course, the second group of policy changes, which is changing menus in ways that encourage country agriculture to grow foods in ways that are much more important to the local environment and the indigenous situation. And here, I just want to highlight the extraordinary success of Brazil with this relatively simple, you would think, concept of 30% of all school food coming from family farms. That's transformed the way in which food is provided, and that may well be a model that is applicable in many places once we start to get into the details. But I do want to add a word of caution there, because we use the term regenerative agriculture a lot in this context, which is about foods that put stuff back into the soil and so forth. But you can have regenerative agriculture that's just about that. It's about improving the soil. It's a biophysical effect. But then there's regenerative agriculture that also takes into account the importance of whether farmers can earn a living out of this, whether women farmers can get access to this. In other words, there's a whole sociological complex of things, what people now call deep regenerative, that also perhaps needs to be given much better, more thought and more airtime. And finally, on that point, I want to just say that one of the concerns that all countries have in this area is about cost. I mean, that has to be underlie all of this. So one of the questions that we really looked at was what's the affordability of these changes? Some changes are not going to be affordable for some countries, but there are a lot that are, and there are a lot that are, if they don't save money, then they're cost neutral. So a move from a standard school menu to a more flexitarian menu, as I described it, can be significantly cheaper. If we think about waste, there's one of the most effective ways of reducing your per capita cost of food is to cut down the amount you waste. And similarly, with the switch from open fires to more efficient stoves. So what I wanted to share here is our models allow a country to look at its own local context and estimate what are the benefits of one approach versus another approach, and how much does it cost. And that's, I think, that's a service we would love to offer generally to countries that want to look at that.
Thank you so much, Don. I could really talk to you all day. This is, big brains have been working on this. And please, if the colleagues, Sylvia, Marcus, some of the colleagues who have been working on this, if you could just stand up so people know how to find you at the coffee break. Big brains have been working on this issue, yet you've come up with very practical and actionable recommendations for countries. Thank you so much for that. Any final word you want to leave with the group as we close this segment?
I just want to say, as I say, the cake's not baked yet. The executive summary, the paper itself, we want more comment on. So feel free to share that. Indeed, we're hoping that with French government support, we will be part of having a global discussion on this issue. We'll keep you posted on that, and we hope you'll take part in that as it goes forward. I also finally hope that the summit will be supportive of this broad vision and will recognize the contribution of the white paper in its outcome statement.
Do we support this vision? Yes? Good to hear that. And if I understand it correctly, the plan is that the cake will be baked and iced and delivered at COP28. Is that correct?
If we feel the love, we will. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Don. So now we're going to invite some countries who we're going to hear from on what they're doing to accelerate food systems transformation and climate action through school meals programs. And we're also going to hear from partners who are supporting countries to do just that. So if I could invite up to the stage Nairobi, Namibia, Sweden, Rockefeller, IFAD, UNESCO, the European Commission, and Germany. Thank you so much. We'll do some slight reorganization here. Well, that was very efficient. Thank you, panelists, for coming up. I'm going to introduce each one by one in the interest of time. But our first panel is going to give us the opportunity to hear some country perspectives. And we really want to look at how these issues are being implemented, particularly in the context of the food and nutrition crisis that we find ourselves in today's world. So my first question is for the government of Nairobi, the governor of Nairobi, His Excellency Sakaja Arthur Johnson. Kenya publicly endorsed recommendations from the Research Consortium's white paper draft as a climate adaptation solution. Can you tell us more about Kenya's scale-up plan for school meals, and how is Kenya thinking about adapting some of these climate-smart approaches in implementing and scaling up school meals?
Thank you very much. By way of introduction, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sakaja Johnson. I'm the governor of Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya. So today I wear two hats. I'll speak on behalf of the national government, and I'm also on the next panel about what local governments are able to do. Kenya's feeding program started in the 80s, and it was primarily focused on vulnerable communities in our arid and semi-arid regions of the country. And we had been feeding around 1.8 million children with local solutions. After the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course we've been doing that with World Food Program and different partners, but we realized that there are greater vulnerabilities beyond those in the arid and semi-arid areas. Those in urban areas, we found face a lot of challenges, because urban poverty many times bites much harder than rural poverty, And so Kenya is scaling up from the 1.8 million to 2.5 million children this year. That is a national target. And we aim to get to 10 million children in the next few years. Despite tough fiscal space, despite budgetary constraints, the country has actually committed to double. We've doubled our budget from $15 million nationally to $30 million, because we've seen the impact. In the schools where this program has been introduced, and I can speak about Nairobi also, we've seen 150% increase in enrollment. Kenya has just come out of the worst drought in 40 years. And during that period, we found 2.5 million children locked out of school because they couldn't get a meal. And so this is a program that His Excellency President William Ruto is very, very passionate about. And I am passionate about it also as the governor of Nairobi. And we hope that we can get more partners to work on this. There are different models that we're using, both as a national government and as county governments, which is our second level of governance in Kenya.
Thank you so much, Governor. I was living in Kenya for 5 years, up until a few years ago, and am so impressed by it's such an impressive city, all of the growth and development that's happening there. But I was also there as Kenya took over full management for national school meals, had been donor financed in the past, another McGovern Dole supported country. WFP has been a longstanding country, but it's been really impressive to see how with devolution, Kenya has really taken up the mantle of ensuring that all children can benefit from a nutritious meal in school. And Nairobi is one of the main challenge areas given the huge city. And we're very much looking forward to hearing you speak in the next panel about some of the impressive work you're leading in Nairobi. Any specific ways in which climate and climate smart practices are being introduced into Kenya's program that you might want to share with us?
Yes, definitely. As I've said, and thank you for the kind words about Nairobi. I think you need to come back. Nairobi keeps calling. Yes, our President William Ruto, has taken a leadership role in climate action on the continent of Africa. And I am also leading that with the subnational governments. I'm the vice chair of the C40 cities, which is a network of 100 cities across the world that are focused on climate action. And what we're practically doing, and I'll give you an example. In Nairobi, I've built 10 kitchens that are green kitchens. And so these kitchens are fully using eco-friendly briquettes. And so the fuels we're using, we're diversifying the diets. And everything that comes out gives us a carbon neutral process through which our kids are eating. And so we're hitting two birds with one stone. On my climate action plan, the two elements of the plan is to safeguard vulnerable communities, but also to ensure resilient food systems. And so that's part of what we're doing, because we've realized there's great vulnerability to climate change. And even as the global south is taking a lead in that discussion, in as much as we may not have been the biggest contributors, but we're suffering from it. And so instead of pointing blame, we're making practical decisions to create green jobs. And some of those green jobs are in the kitchens. And in the last 12 months, we've been able to employ, for instance, in Nairobi, 1,500 people, many of whom are parents of those children, and they had no jobs. They were mired in the poverty of an urban space. And so they're seeing the benefit of climate action. Their children are eating. And the most beautiful thing is that the children feel cared for, and that's something that we many times miss out on. We look at the numbers, we look at the statistics, but just the feeling of a government that is responsive and that cares and loves you changes the whole attitude of the people. So we have happier people in the country as part of our goals, and I think that is also a very important indicator. So we're encouraging the shift in the fuels that we're using in our kitchens in many of the counties. And maybe just for context, Kenya has two levels of government. We have a national government. It's almost like a federal system. And then we have 47 different regional governments or county governments. And so in as much as the national government has put in $30 million, the county governments are also making commitments. My government has put down 11 million euros this year just for the school feeding program, and the national government is matching. And so there are a lot of synergies that devolution brings that both levels can be able to apply in this context.
Thank you so much, Governor. And something that WFP has been very pleased to support with Kenya is helping these county governments using their devolved budgets to procure locally as close to the schools as possible. And that combined with some of the efforts around green kitchens, et cetera, is helping Kenya lead the way in this space. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Next, we're going to turn to Sweden, and I have the Director-General of the Department of Rural Affairs, Mr. Johan Krafft. Where's Johan? Johan Krafft, there you are. Mr. Krafft, Sweden has a very robust school meals program and implemented in a very sustainable way. You've been a pioneer of introducing this, and I understand that there's been a recent analysis about some of the costs and benefits of incorporating these sustainable policies in school meals. Can you share some of the findings with us? I think they could also be quite helpful for other countries who are considering making similar shifts.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be here, I must say. It's a privilege and it's very inspiring. Regarding the study you mentioned, I would like to maybe give a brief background and some general comments on what we're trying to do when it comes to sustainable change. as you pointed out, we have been privileged and have been serving cost-free meals in school for over 70 years. And since 2012, we have a meal model which includes different quality aspects, such as safe and nutritious, tasty, and school meals served in pleasant environment. And the meal should also be eco-smart and contribute to environmentally sustainable development. And to fully use the meal's potential, it should be integrated into the core activities and be a natural part of the education. And it's also implemented in the national guidelines for meals in schools and preschools. Now, this model is not only used by schools, but also in public meals, in elderly care and hospitals. And finally, the financing is the responsibility of our local municipalities. It's mandatory, though, and obviously the implementation varies between the 290 municipalities. We also have a competence center at the National Food Agency. I want to underline the importance of the work they do there. And their task is really to support and provide also advice and education in order to promote a long-term sustainable change and develop the school meal system. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. We do have to tackle a few things. For example, school meals are not yet part of the school's education and is not used as the tool it has the potential to be. To learn about healthy and sustainable diets, agriculture, and local food production. There is another challenge is, of course, that we have a lack of cooperation between actors in the school meal system. They need to work together. They don't, not to the extent that they should. And I'm talking here about all involved, teachers, headmasters, caterers, chefs, parents, and pupils, obviously. Now, let me just say a few brief words on the school food innovation as a lever for a sustainable food system, where we started today. The school food system has similar challenges as the large food system, but as it is a more tangible and a smaller version, it is believed to be a suitable place to initiate wider transformation. I repeat what you said earlier, but anyway. At national and a place-based mission, a pilot project has been established to innovate the Swedish school meal system. And the aim is to connect transformation within food system to changes in education, local resilience, and public health. And it covers all areas such as health, teaching, logistic, farming, and food waste, not the least food waste. And here I come to one of the core things here, and it is the fact that the desired outcomes were discussed and established in collaboration with relevant actors in policy labs. 4 municipalities have been selected in this pilot project in local school to work with the local school meal systems. And new or revised national policy documents will be developed as a result of this experiment. And the working assumption is that schools are a society in miniature, and that a transformed school meal system can serve as a leverage for transforming entire food system. Through this project, named A New Recipe for School Meals, the aim is to address the school meal system from a sustainable and system perspective, in order to solve the challenges we are facing, at the same time design and implement a school meal system that is more sustainable than today. And as we all know, the school meal system that contributes to social, ecological, economic sustainability locally, regionally, nationally, and even internationally, where they have gathered representatives from the systems, chefs, the students, farmers, meal planners, principals, parents, and actors from different agencies. So finally, I just want to underline the importance of getting all the actors working together to reach a sustainable change for school meals, but also on the aggregated level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johan. So last but not least on our impressive country panel, I bring us to Southern Africa, to Namibia, and I have Her Excellency, Ms. Anna Nghipondoka. Excellency, Namibia has been working on an innovative homegrown school feeding pilot that aims to diversify school meals. I love homegrown school meals, so I'm excited to hear about that. And can you tell us how the pilot is incorporating climate-friendly, climate-adaptive approaches in its effort to transform local food systems?
To start with, Namibia introduced the National School Feeding Program in 1991, which was a year into our independence. And in 1996, the Homegrown School Feeding Program was introduced with the assistance of World Food Program. And the whole aim was really to look into the food systems transformation to make it more climate resilient, and also with the aim of improving on our nutritional value of our meals. Because what we used to give and what we give now is mainly the maize blend, which is of course having a lot of fortified nutrients. But with the homegrown school feeding program, we are improving on the nutritional value in our food. So in our country, we are still running it on two legs, which is the National School Feeding Program, and now the piloting of the Homegrown School Feeding Program, which is done in 29 schools in the country, which is in 7 of the 14 regions in the country. When it comes to the climate resilience efforts, the Homegrown School Feeding Pilot Program is necessarily looking into the issue of regenerative agricultural methods, where definitely we take care of into the climate effects of gardening and all those things that we are doing in terms of using of greenhouses, in terms of using the fertilizers, which are mainly organic. And this is naturally done, of course, definitely, because with the Homegrown School Feeding Program, these are done at schools through the school gardens, and also through the strengthening of the smallholder farmers to produce foods for the schools. And definitely, naturally, the fertilizers that we are using are more organic, because we rely on manure from the cattle, manure from the chicken, and so on. So when we talk of the issue of really the climatic improvement of the system that we are improving, is to say that all the systems that we are using are a climatic smart approach, which includes, as I said, the greenhouse effects. I mean, greenhouses, they promote to promote continued food production. We also ensure water supply that we use is mainly the irrigation system. This is on the basis of our country being an arid country, and the rain is also unpredictable, and many a times we are suffering from droughts. And this year is one of the years that we really go through the severe drought, and definitely drip irrigation systems are the ones that we installed in the greenhouses in order for us to ensure that we have enough water and we don't waste water. So the project also promotes sustainable agricultural practices through the integration of regenerative agriculture activities and capacity building of various aspects central to sustainable food production. So it's all about naturally doing what we are supposed to do because of the nature and the contractual, the contractual climatic systems in our country.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And it's really great to hear about how Namibia is very clearly incorporating these climate-smart, planet-friendly practices in your school meals program. So we had a great set of countries here sharing their examples. I think they deserve a round of applause, don't you? And now we're going to move to our partners who are going to share some thoughts on what support is available for countries that are heading down this path of food systems transformation. And here too, I'll invite them, or I'll introduce them one by one. I'm going to start with Roy Steiner, the Senior Vice President of the Rockefeller Foundation. Hi, Roy, nice to see you. The Rockefeller Foundation is a key partner of the School Meals Coalition. And we know, Roy, that as part of your good food strategy and now your climate strategy, you have really seen the role that school meals can play. Now, Rockefeller Foundation has recently been calling school meals a big bet. I want to understand what that means and how you are helping countries to innovate. Why are school meals so important? Why are they a big bet? And why do they feature so prominently in your strategy? And maybe even more importantly, what investments are you making to make this a reality on the ground? Roy, over to you.
Great, thank you so much. It's always wonderful to be here. Well, you know, Rockefeller started being interested in school meals really when we did our true cost accounting of the food system. We've created this food system that is not only the leading cause of mortality, like what we're eating is literally killing us, it's also destroying the planet, as we know. And school meals is a powerful way to use to shift that system. We started in a number of investments in the United States, for example, moving to more local procurement with the US food system, but even getting all the urban schools together to demand antibiotic-free meat. And the industry didn't want to do that, but because they're such a large purchaser of meat, it forced the entire industry to shift. And now you can get antibiotic-free meat anywhere in the United States. And that was really because of this shift in the school purchasing. Most recently, I want to talk about two innovations. One, a product innovation and a process innovation. It is interesting that refined grain, which is what most kids in the world eat now, it is really the result of a false assumption. It made sense 30 years ago. We ate refined grain because it had shelf life of 6 to 12 months, and whole grains only had about 4 weeks. That is no longer the case, but we still reduce. When you refine grain, you lose 30% of the volume and 90% of the nutrition, and then we feed it to our children. It makes no sense anymore. It made sense a while ago. And so we've been working with our partners in the World Food Program. We started with a pilot in Rwanda. It's a great place to work. Started with 3,000 kids. I think we're at 60,000 plus. And with the dynamic Minister of Agriculture and Minister of Education who's here with us, I have no doubt that we'll be getting to 4 million kids. And that's just simply shifting. Suddenly, within a few years, you have 30% more food. It's a win-win-win. More food, the children are getting more nutrition, the environment, you use 30% less fertilizer, less land because you don't need as much, and it's budget neutral. It's one of those extraordinary innovations that just requires us to think a bit differently. The other innovation I think is, and I'm sitting next to the governor here, Kenya really has made some extraordinary commitments to move from 1.5 million, as you mentioned, to 10 million children. Well, that takes a lot of energy and effort and thought, because that's complex, right? You have to suddenly, where are you going to get that food? How are you going to distribute it? What's the monitoring and evaluation? How do you do the meal planning? We've been working with NACONET and a number, and our colleagues at the World Food Program to help the government of Kenya make that happen, embedding a consultant who can come and accompany the government, building up the analysis of how do you compare all the different choices you have. What's the most efficient, effective, cost-effective way of feeding that many children? That requires a lot of analysis, and governments need to be able to do that. And so I think building that capacity within the government is going to enable that to be sustainable over the long run. And so last night I went to bed just thinking about, like, how do we accelerate? This is what we're doing in this room is probably the most important thing I could possibly think of, because we're influencing the future of humanity with this program. And so I think this is a weighty responsibility. So I went to bed, I was like, how do we accelerate this? 2:30 in the morning, I woke up and I was like, there has to be a better, we have to expand the capacity of the School Meals Coalition to assist governments. And I started developing, I came up with the School Meals Advanced Real-Time Technical Assistance, SMARTA, or you could also do SMILE, the School Meals Innovation Learning Enabler. Anyway, something that enables governments to build that capacity to more effectively, more efficiently advance school meals. And I think, when we're talking about building fiscal space, that's not enough. You have to build the capacity for that to be sustainable. And I know Christine Duarte really believes that. And I think I'd like to invite anybody, and especially funders who are interested in working with us and our partners at the School Meals Coalition to develop the idea so that we really accelerate this program in a way that it deserves. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Roy. And I guess the big bet is that it's a big payoff. A small investment pays off big. Can you just a few more words on what is the, I'm a little worried that you spend your nights sleeping and dreaming about this, but good for all of us.
The most important thing to be dreaming about, actually.
But the role that Rockefeller Foundation plays is so key, but just maybe highlighting it, what is it that foundations like Rockefeller bring to the table in terms of unlocking some of these barriers that allow the kind of investments that are necessary?
Yeah, so I think one of the advantages of philanthropy is we can take risks. We can do things that are sometimes uncomfortable for other stakeholders, and it's our responsibility. If we're not failing or we're not taking the risks, I don't think we're doing the job that we're supposed to be doing. For 110 years, we've been in this business of trying to advance the well-being of humanity. And it's school meals as a big bet, because if you're thinking about the well-being of humanity, you better be thinking about the future generations. And I think we are living in a world where there's so much short-term thinking and so much narrow thinking, and we need long-term connected, unified thinking that recognizes the oneness of humanity. And so a big bet is really, we're betting on the future humanity and doing this. And so hopefully we'll bring a lot of people together. One other point is, I think we're living in such a polarized world. We need to find points of unity, and children is the point of unity. Everybody loves their children. Let's work with that as a point of unity to bring the world closer together.
Thank you so much. And we're very glad that these are the issues that are keeping you up at night, and supporting governments to de-risk their investments is so key. So next up, I'm going to turn to my sister from Rome, Gérardine Mukeshimana. Gérardine, up until recently, would have been known to many of you as the Minister of Agriculture from Rwanda. That's how I first got to know her, and how delighted we are that she is now Vice President at IFAD, our sister Rome-based agency. Gérardine, congratulations again for your new assignment. Now, IFAD has been dedicated to building climate resilience with rural communities for some time. Can you elaborate, especially when it comes to small-scale producers, how linkages with school meals can support those climate resilience and climate-friendly practices?
Thank you, Valerie. Good morning, everyone. That's right. IFAD works in rural communities, and because we are sitting with a different audience, probably I should tell that IFAD is a financial institution and a specialized agents of the UN, and we lend to countries in lower and middle income countries so that they can work in agricultural development. And we have been working hard to make sure that we have on every single dollar that our member states are giving us, because many of them are sitting in the room, have been turning that into an investment of $6 on ground in our member states. So for the last year, IFAD has been really working in school meal systems, because the school meals are one of the most, it's been said in many areas since yesterday, it's one of way of building the future, but also it's one way of building the rural communities economy, because we have been working with our sister agencies from Rome, as Valerie has mentioned, to make sure that we work all the way from production to making the menu, to learning experiences, teaching children how to garden, and in that whole space. And it's been really rewarding. So far, we are working in 19 countries where we specialize into the homegrown school meal systems, where we connect the producing communities to the school so that they can source the school supplies from the growing communities, rather than relying on importations or centralized school supplies. And it's been exciting, and for instance, I don't want to repeat what Roy has mentioned, but I can give an example of 2 countries. Our WFP, FAO, and IFAD have been working in Burundi in milk supply to the schools, and it's been a partnership that worked very well, where IFAD has been into cow distribution, milk collection center construction, and assistance to institutions has been working on milk quality testing, animal feed, and so the private sector can be able to distribute milk into the schools. That's one of the exciting projects that we have. But yesterday I had a meeting with Her Excellence from Guatemala. So again, these institutions have been working to link the farming community to the schools. And I guess some of the videos that we saw, there are some Guatemala children. And I mean, it's really exciting that some of them are advocating for 2 meals a day, but the unfortunate news is that we still have in developing countries 73 million children that go to school every single day, still hungry. So there is so much work that needs to be done still. That said, IFAD will continue. We have been working for the last 3 years, making sure that 60% of the projects that IFAD implement into our member states are nutrition sensitive. 90% of them are climate sensitive, and we continue to work to make sure that the communities that are working with the IFAD are having the means they need to adapt to the climate change. And for the last 3 years, IFAD invested 3.3 billion into the rural communities to connect the dots to make sure that the kids can be well fed. We are into the mobilization of our next 3-year cycle. I'm glad that we are in France. We thank the government of France for the support into our replenishment, and our member states, we mobilize them to step up the contribution. We have huge ambitions to make sure that in the next 3 years, IFAD can have a program of work of almost 10 billion to be able to support the rural community, the rural development, and connect the dots to the school meals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gérardine. It was great to hear you also bring the livestock element in as we're talking about agri-food systems and the opportunity for transformation there. That's so relevant for many of the governments here. And then also to highlight how your replenishment and the priorities under it can be used to support the financing of school meals programs. I'm sure Christina's taking note over there as well in leading that financing effort. So let's move over now. Okay, we're talking about education, so we've got to have UNESCO talking at the table. And we're so delighted to have Stefania Giannini with us, the Assistant Director General for Education at UNESCO. Stefania, UNESCO, but you also personally have taken a very holistic view on education, the need to ensure good health, nutrition, and well-being as key towards education outcomes. So this idea of focusing on the learning and the learner is embedded in that. You're also leading the way in promoting coordination and investment in greening education. So with some of the things that we're talking about, how do you see the potential to have school meals and climate smart school meals as part of this greening effort on education and greening partnerships that you have been spearheading?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us in this panel. I feel a little bit like the spokesperson of the education sector in this panel, at least, but I see so many partners in crime sitting in the room today and yesterday. I was really very much inspired. So Valerie, let me start to congratulate WFP, your team, for putting together this impressive initiative. I think that I was also thinking early in the morning, not by night, that I usually sleep very well, but I think this central role of school meals and food, healthy food and nutrition in education means very much for us, makes us rethinking of this very popular, well-known motto by the German philosopher, I'm sure you remember Ludwig Feuerbach, who was saying centuries ago, a man is what he or she eats. And this is very much, the backdrop of all your action and our joint actions. So, going to your question, I think there is a structural connection between school meals and education. It's about thinking that the school meals are not simply and crucially delivering meals at school, but they're an essential part of what we think is a green school about. You just mentioned this other impressive initiative, which comes from the Transforming Education Summit last year. Many honorable ministers are sitting here in the first row and elsewhere, where with us, some 167 countries committed to transform their education system around the different pillars and actions. But many of them, I would say 2/3 of these countries, put education for sustainable development, climate change, and addressing in education at least the 3 basic crises we are facing: the hunger crisis, the climate crisis, and the learning crisis, through this holistic approach, which means changing the model of learning and teaching and acting about at least 4 pillars. I wish to recall briefly them. These are the 4 pillars where green in education has built around. Green in schools, green in curriculum, green in the teacher's capacity, green in communities. And I think that school meals are fitting perfectly at least around the 3 of them. When it's about green in schools, you cannot have a sustainable approach to school management and what is happening in the school organization and the daily learning of children without an appropriate policy on meals and delivery of meals. And this is about reduction of waste and other sustainable behaviors that can really make children being the agents of change, as our colleagues from the Research Consortium just clearly mentioned. Then it's about curriculum. I mean, to put it simply, we have a clear correlation, data, evidence-based, that healthy learners do learn better and more. On the other side, well-educated children are most likely to be healthy, to think healthy, to act healthy, as children now, as citizens, adults in the future. So this is about the change. This is about better knowledge, raising awareness, changing behaviors. And when education can really reach this goal through a comprehensive approach, I mean, SDG 4 is not a dream, but is something that we can reach in the coming years. So I see a very important, unique opportunity, colleagues, in the coming weeks and months. It's the COP28. The COP28, as you all know, convened by UAE in Dubai, will be the first COP where education will have a dedicated day, a dedicated pavilion where the greening partnership will be from the champions countries. By the way, UK and Japan are leading on that, but we have almost 90 countries, members of this coalition, will be relaunched and will be presented through a roadmap with actionable and measurable targets. So I think it's the time to establish a strategic alliance between the School Meals Coalition and the Green Education Partnerships. And this is very much about having a common roadmap where these 3 pillars at least can be brought together in the coming months. Second objective, I see a little bit, in the mid-term time, we say it's about, must be bolder a little bit. Reshaping SDG 4 means opening windows and doors of the education sector. This is a little bit a message to my colleagues here in the room who are, like me, engage every day in education. This notion of transformation is very much based on the need we have to approach education challenges and providing education solutions to other sectors and having this collective efforts to make education very much part of the solution, whatever the challenge and the topic. I see honorable ministers here in the first rows. As a former minister, I know it's not easy to have an all-government approach to the many topics and challenges that you are facing in your country. But I do believe that this transforming education process that we are running together can really provide us, through these alliances between sectors, a real golden opportunity to change. And children are very much the center of what we are doing. Children, youth, students, I mean, it's not only about schools, it's also disseminating a culture of sustainable and healthy behaviors that can really make the difference in the future. I think that education can really a good ally also for all of you. Valerie, we started to discuss about that, if not mistaken, 4 years ago in Rome, then the Food Summit, and the School Meals Coalition, kudos once again for the great work you're doing. Then the Transforming Education Summit. I say we are also very much translating commitments now into action together with governments and supporting governments to do that despite the many, many challenges in these troubled times. And everything is also about, let me say, from the UNESCO perspective, having education as a solution for peace. Because the more we invest in education, the more we put children and schools at the center of communities, and the better, possibly, there will be a solution for, bigger problems we are facing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stefania, Giannini, and for everything that you're doing to bring these agendas together. So key. So now I'm going to turn to the European Commission, and I have Marjeta Jager, the Deputy Director-General for International Partnerships. The European Commission has been investing in school meals for quite some time. How are you supporting food systems transformation linked to your engagement and support on school meals? Marjeta, thank you so much for coming. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting European Commission to this historical first coalition summit, School Meal Coalition Summit, and I'm very honored to be part of this distinguished panel. So I'm here on behalf of Commissioner Jutta Urpilainen, basically to demonstrate the EU's strong commitment to invest in the school meals. And as a member of the School Meal Coalition, the EU is doing utmost to create healthy school environment. This is my first statement that I would like to remember. And as you said, we've been investing for decades to improve health, nutrition and learning outcomes. And we've been supporting national efforts in this endeavor, bilaterally and globally, but basically to ensure inclusive and universal access to education, of course, quality health and wash, and nutrition services for children, including in schools as the most critical platform. And here, let me be quite frank, we've been investing a huge financial commitments in those efforts. Just to give you the example, in the last, say, 6 years, we put more than 6 billion in nutrition and the same amount, more or less, in education now that our commissioner increased the sources for education from 7 to 13% of our budget. But also we've been very active in giving the commitment and pledges, for example, 2.5 billion at the latest, I would say, Nutrition for Growth Summit. But what we really believe is that the multi-sectorial and context-specific and right-based approach is really essential to end the child hunger and malnutrition. And also what we are doing is investing heavily in the local production, basically to ensure the food sovereignty and food security. But another important issue is diversification of meals. So we do believe that really the health, plant-based animal sourced like fish would really bring very good outcomes, and basically, it's essential for growing and learning children. I was thinking how to give you a couple of examples, what we are doing for the school meal coalition, so across the regions. And I would like to share with you 3 examples. First one is in Africa and the CR, where we, together with France, our host, and Germany, establish the school canteens in areas that are in the greatest needs. And basically, this is in the Team Europe approach, and we use local food production for homegrown school meals. This is one example of a 50 million project, and also we also bring the access to water and wash into that. The second one I would like to mention is Haiti, where we are doing in Spain. Basically, we do provisions of school meals in the context of sustainable, equitable and climate-resistant agri-food system in line with our Green Deal and Farm to Fork, where of course we would like to build healthy and environmentally friendly food systems, and we do that in the very much integrated approach, nutrition and climate change integration. And Malawi is the one where we have a second phase of Solata program and includes the mitigating and adaptation measures. And there with the WFP, we promote the crop diversification because that is also what we live in, it's very important. And let me conclude in saying that after this panel, we are going to sign again, I mean, very important contribution to WFP on Afghanistan. We just released 140 million before the end of this year to help Afghanistan in crisis, and we are signing 10 million contribution for school meals with you. And I hope you will all attend this ceremony, and thank you for listening to the Commission's efforts to School Meal Coalition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marjeta, for the long commitment and continued commitment, and also for that exciting new contribution that the children in Afghanistan are very grateful for, as are we. So last but not least, we have Martin Hoppe, the Deputy Director General for Sustainable Supply Chains from Germany. We're the converted here, and we believe that school meals are a powerful instrument for transforming change at the local level. Clearly, Germany believes so too. And I hear that Martin has an exciting new program that he's going to tell us about. So I give you the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Many people feel uncomfortable being in the last speaking spot. Actually, I think it's great. I don't have to tell you anything new. Everything has been said. What I can do is I can tell you what I've learned. And this is what I'll try to do in a few minutes. First of all, I've learned from the video, we should listen to children. Very frankly, one point they said is, and in their words, is like, thank you the president for providing blah. What they actually mean is holding their governments responsible. That is an expectation they're voicing, and we should listen to them. Children have a right to good school meals, and it is a responsibility of governments to deliver. That's one thing I learned today. Another thing, Dan, thank you for providing so much scientific insight. I'm actually quite proud, and I'm happy Carmen Bobano is here in the room. We just drafted, and you alluded to it, Ms. Moderator, a program jointly between German government and World Food Program, which we're about to implement. And that is something also like I want to maybe share with you. We came up with this idea this year, and we start implementing next. So we'll be very fast. Germany is commissioning World Food Program to implement a 22 million accelerating school meals program in 2 countries, that is Sierra Leone and Laos. Now, this will be 5 years, so it is a significant amount of money, but it's also not huge if you think 5 years, 2 countries. Sierra Leone and Laos, those are not necessarily the first countries that will come to your mind as a development partner, right? They're not one of the darlings. Why did we choose them? And we chose them jointly, and I really like that effort because they have a strong commitment. They have programs in place that we could easily link up to, and we have a presence, of course, ourselves. But this is what we need, and I'm telling you this as a donor country. What we really need to see is the commitment from our partner countries and efforts that we can link up to. And then there's one thing I learned from a talk outside I had with colleagues from Liberia. They have this commitment, but they lack the resource. They say, yes, we want to do school meals, we believe in school meals, but for now we don't have the finance. It's a donor driven and not owned because the government is engaged, but they heavily rely on donors. And I think this is the beauty of this very coalition. We've learned of some countries, Kenya, that managed to do that, that find the resources, innovate about the finance of school meals. And this is what I would encourage all of us. This is something I'm learning. And this is something we all can learn from each other. Wow, some countries have done it. And they're not necessarily ultra-rich either. So let's learn from it. Let's use the opportunity. We're here together in a joint effort and really listen to each other. I'm here to listen more than I'm here to tell you. Then, Roy, isn't it great to have an American in the room and all of a sudden you're in a different mood, like celebrating what we're doing? That's a very American approach. But I congratulate you on this, and it is true. That's exactly what we should do. We should celebrate what we're doing because it is true. We're working on the future of our world. This is what the children are. And when you were talking about carrying, I was reminded of this song of Sting. I hope the Russians love their children too. This uniting element that school feeding can be, because we all care about our children. And I would really want to stress that moment. We are in a very divided period of time, but we can sit here together and not talk the big politics. We can really focus on something we want to achieve jointly for our own common future. And this is also why I really believe, and thank you for reminding us of this. This is what I want to also take home from here. One very last word. I see the red card. I haven't heard it, maybe it was done yesterday more. I really want to thank the French government for inviting us here, for hosting us. I know this is a huge effort. I'm coming from a ministry myself. Bringing in the state president to such an event is a huge effort, is a huge commitment by the French government. So I really want to thank the French government for their leadership on this. And I myself will promise to you, Germany has been in the School Meals Coalition basically from start, and we will continue giving this a great effort, and I look forward to implementing our program together. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martin. And I think really highlighting how school meals are something that we can all agree on. That's why we're here. And that's why we're looking at ways also to leverage that positive vibe and feeling towards also transforming food systems to help end hunger. Sustainable Development Goals are our beacon of light. I want to thank all the panelists who were joining us and sharing your valuable perspectives on this second panel. It's so impressive to see how much is being done to support countries with their transformation, and the leadership and commitment from the governments that we were hearing about yesterday and we're hearing about today to ensure all children benefit from a nutritious meal, to use school meals as a lever of change, really resonated throughout this panel. So thank you so much for all of the actions, examples of how school meals can be and are being used to drive climate action and food systems transformation. Super, super inspired by everything that we've been hearing. A few things maybe to highlight as we close, though Martin helped me with some of the closing. I think that learning is key, both in listening to the children and learning from each other is one of the main values of the School Meals Coalition. I hear that local procurement and the power of procurement is something that is being taken up and resonates with the different countries. We had the example of Namibia that was shared on how we can shorten transportation-related emissions, contribute to lower carbon emissions and a smaller ecological footprint when we procure food closer to the source. We also talked about the importance of preventing and reducing food waste through the supply chain or along the supply chain. We talked about how equipping foods with efficient stoves, like Kenya has been doing, is key. This can have a major impact on greenhouse gas emissions, cut carbon emissions, and lower fuel costs while preventing deforestation. We have all seen those school meals programs where, you know, it's cook stoves that are being fed with wood that's being chopped from forests and trees nearby. And this is something that we need to be very practically addressing in our school meals programs. The technology is there and we need to be deploying it. And then we've also heard how important it is to provide children with healthy diets and back that by education, which can create in the children, our future, a lifelong climate consciousness that will help them also drive change in their own communities. I mean, what's a better way to shape the markets of tomorrow than by changing the diets of children today? And so that came across also very loud and clear through our panel. We need to support governments to continue to prioritize these investments. We need to make the link between school meals and climate action more visible. Upcoming COP28 is going to be a great opportunity to take it forward, and then it doesn't end with COP. We're going to continue that on into next year as well. Thank you all for your commitment and your support, and looking forward to the next panel. Thank you to the wonderful panelists today.
Thank you so much, Valerie, and I wholeheartedly thank the panelists. Please, dear panelists, please, it will be good for you to move out from the stage from this direction. From your right, please.